Okay, so that should all now be installed. When you check the Alchemy Lab Props folder, if you haven't done so already, it's just a case of double clicking on this first one, and that will then install everything that you need. And since we've now effectively installed that, you can then delete the Alchemy Lab Props folder. Okay. Since that should have installed inside of the multi-story Dungeons 2, and you've got everything that you need right here. Okay, I just want to take my project tab, just move it up to the top so that I've got more room. And I'll just move it like this. So I actually want to make this folder into a props folder, so I'm just going to rename that. So right click and rename, and I'll just call it props. That's technically what's in there, and then obviously all of the prefabs, it's already called props. Okay, and we've got all sorts of great stuff going on in here. Okay, yep, scenes, you can check out the overview if you want, so let's just take a quick look as we double click this. In the scene, if we double click something, it's going to show you all of these items pretty much laid out for you, so you can see what these look like. Okay, this is quite standard from a package. It shows you what you get, and as you can see, there's a wide variety of items that we can actually use here. Okay, and then we have the cartoon heroes. There's a PDF that you can read through if you like. Once again, this is kind of almost like a modular character in that you can equip them with any sort of outfit, and you can mix and match between the character types. However, you do have preset character prefabs, female and male. So let's just take a quick look. You can just drag these directly into your scene and they will work straight off. So for example, I just drag the character in and already set up. What you'll notice with these characters is they do have a strange architecture setup, where we've got these things. If I take a look, I think it's under the character actually. Here it is. The script is kind of odd. Alright, you basically have to assign the items here like this, alright, in order to change the character. But if you're quite happy with the setup, then you can just kind of go with that setup. That's perfectly fine. Okay, just to make you aware of that. Alright, so what we're going to do is file new scene, just a basic built-in. Nope, we don't want to save that. I'm going to do file, save as, I'll save it into scenes, and I will simply call this house prefabs. Since what we're going to be working on in this is just basically modular layouts of the house. So if we go back to project, and if we click on the medieval house light and then into the prefab, we've actually got ourselves a prefab of the building. So if we just click and drag this into the hierarchy, double click, to set it up, and as you can see, we've already got a building that's pretty much laid out for us. Okay, it looks quite nice. Some of the quality on the textures when you get really close is not particularly great, but from a distance it looks perfectly fine. Okay, this is because it's using a texture atlas. Okay, so all of these textures are taking up a very small amount of space in one large image. Okay, but it does mean that all of these individual items, and you'll see there is a lot of those, is actually, you know, all covered by one texture, one material. So all of that is only taking up one draw core. All right, which is pretty amazing. Now your medieval house light might look a little bit different to mine. What I've done is effectively, I'll just delete this out. I've gone into FBX, taken this house, okay, that is the original house, and on the prefab I've just clicked and dragged this over this one, replace anyway, original prefab, and that updates that so it looks exactly like this. The reason why I've done that The one that originally came with this had all sorts of particles, extra elements that we don't need at the moment. Okay, we'll add those later. These small houses, I'm only planning on having these as external only. So in other words, you can't actually enter this building because it's a bit too small. It does have an interior, but there's nothing in there. Okay, but your character is not really going to be able to move around inside of this building, so there's not really much point in going inside of it. We are going to be making larger buildings a little bit later that you can actually go into. Okay, so first of all, I just want to click on Medieval House Light, and I want to right click, choose Prefab and Unpack completely. This separates it from this prefab here. So this 3D model only exists in this particular scene, in the house prefab scene. It doesn't exist in the project. Okay, so we can make any changes without affecting the original. And what I want to do is, first of all, just get rid of these boxes on the outside, because I'll be placing the boxes in manually later. Don't think I want this on the outside, so I'm just going to press delete to get rid of it, and we'll create like a bar pub place later. So this one, I'm just going to get rid of this. Okay, this is just a standard house. Okay, so as a layout, I think I'm quite happy with that. All right, as a small house. So just want to click on this over into the inspector, and let's just call it house 1. Okay, or let's call it house original, since we know that that's the original one. Now we're only going to be rendering the outside, so that means there's a whole bunch of stuff on the inside that we simply don't need. So if I click on this and just switch this item off, you can see we've got all these bits on the inside that we're simply not going to see. As such, we can just delete these out. Okay, same with this floor as well, we're not going to see it, so let's just delete it out. Okay, I'll put my roof back on. Okay, I'll take this bit, switch this off, make sure you don't delete those, by the way, and let's just go through this so I can see a little bit there that I don't need this bar, don't need that or that, don't need the beam there, don't need this, right, don't need this or this or this. So we're basically just saving the amount of objects that need to be rendered, and also cutting down on that geometry as well. We've got a few little pieces of wood, I believe. Oh, actually this is all one prefab by the look of it. It is. I thought we could click on that bit of wood, but I don't think we can. I think that's all part of the chimney. I'll just double check. Yep, it is. Okay, so we can't delete out those little bits of wood. So I'll just switch back on the roof, and there we go. All right, so now we've got basically a little building that we can place lots and lots of these in the scene, and it's not taking up way too much geometry. Okay, now if we click on any of these items where we've got our material, we'll notice it's all using the same material. What I want to ensure is that it is using the GPU instancing. What this means is any of these objects that are all using the same material, it will try and lump them all together into one big piece and just use like one draw call instead of using like lots and lots of draw calls for lots of different small bits of objects. So I'm going to click on all of these items and just enable GPU instancing. Okay, that's just going to make it a lot faster to actually render that out. So in our project, we've called this house original. Let's drag that now, and that will then create a prefab. Okay, so that one's fine. Let's delete that. In fact, actually, no, I'm not going to delete this because I've just made those changes. What I want to do is right click on this prefab and unpack completely. All right, so it doesn't affect this one. And what I want to do is basically just make another variation of this house. Okay, so this one might not have this little bit on the top that's called a roof dormer. So I can just press delete, get rid of that. Okay, it might also not have these on the end. So I'm just going to delete these. Okay, and delete these beams as well. Delete these. Delete this. Okay, delete this, delete this, delete the floor. So what we end up with basically is I might make a really little tiny house. Okay, so I'll delete this as well, delete this. Just keep deleting. I'm going to delete this one and replace this with a smaller piece. Okay, it's going to be one of these. So I can click on this, I can do a Control and D to duplicate, or you can do Edit and Duplicate, whichever you prefer. And then I'm going to make sure I'm switching my snapping off, and I'm just going to move this freehand. Now I don't want this to look like this. If you notice, these two pieces are identical and you get this weird mirroring effect. So what I want to do is basically rotate this around. So if I do hold Control on my keyboard and move around, that will actually snap. And I want it to be facing the exact opposite direction. Make sure that says -180 on the Y. Okay, great. And it just makes it look a little bit more interesting. I'm going to get pretty close to it now. Make sure I'm on move, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to press V on the keyboard so that I can go into vertex mode. I'm just going to click on this and snap it together onto that wall. Now I can see that we've got a slight bit of a gap at the bottom there. Technically we should never see that gap anyway. Basically that's where that wood was. Since our angle that we're going to be looking at is going to be roughly like this, so we're not necessarily going to see the bottom of that, so we don't really have to worry too much about that. Okay, now all I need to do is take this, hold shift this, hold shift this, and duplicate. Okay, so edit, Control and D to duplicate, and I'm just going to move these ones over to this side. Now as long as I've got all three selected, I'm now just going to rotate them around. So Control, and then looks like they're all moving independently of each other. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so what I need to do there then is click on this one first and just move it around, so it should be 180. This one, move this one around so that it's 180. And then this one, let's move this around so that it's 180. Okay, and then we just need to do some repositioning. So let's click on this. In fact, it'll actually be this one. Just move it over here like this, and then we can snap these two together. So let's just hold V and snap. This one actually needs moving forward. So what I want to do is move this up, and I just want to snap this bit down onto that vertex there. There we go, and then I just want to move this back a little bit. There we go. It does have a bit of an overhang. If we take a look on this side, you can see that it does have that overhang on there. Okay, great. So now I'm going to take all three of these items and just push them back toward here. Now what I need to do is basically just snap this to this. Okay, as long as I've got all three items selected, I'm going to hold V, and I'm just going to click on this and just snap. All right, and that will then basically finish off the side of the house there. Oh, I've got a little bit of a gap going on there, so I might just need to push this back further actually. Got a little bit of a overhang, but not too much. Okay, make sure there's no gap there. Great, so now we've got ourselves a little tiny house. Okay, we're missing a wooden beam on this side, so I'm just going to click on this one, Control and D to duplicate, and let's just move it over to this side, and I'll just manually place this one, so I don't think it's going to snap to anything. So just want it roughly about here. Okay, yep, I think that's fine. And now we've got ourselves a little tiny house. Okay, so that's quite nice. Let's just call this one house small. Then in the project I can take house small, drag it over here, and that will then make that into a prefab. Okay, so let's make a slightly bigger house this time. So I'm just going to delete this one and take my house original, drag this back onto here, and then once again right click, prefab, unpack completely again. Okay, so I want a much bigger house. I'm going to leave this on this side because I quite like this, but I'm going to extend this out on this side. So I just want to take these items as well as the posts as well and just drag this out. Okay, and then I want to extend the roof out quite a bit. So I'd recommend working with the roof to begin with and then working down through the walls to the floor on the bottom there. So as long as I've got this selected, I'm going to do a Control and D, just move this over, get pretty close, hold V and just snap. Okay, and then once again Control and D, let's move this over, hold V and snap. One more perhaps, Control and D, move this over and V. Okay, there we go, snap that together. Okay, so now we need to put in some wall pieces. This one's got a window. Notice there's no window on the other side. So what I might do with this is take this, Control and D, bring it over to this side, and then just bring it out like this. Now we need to snap this to this wall. Okay, so that's just a case of V, and then just snap into place. There we go, and that will then snap it. Now we have got a pretty big piece at the back here that I'm going to use, so I'm just going to do Control and D, bring this forward over to this side. Yep, I think I quite like the layout. Notice that we get that nice kind of V shape. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to press V and just snap that together. Alright, that's that one. Now I might take this bit of a wall at the back here. This is more of a kind of a plain bit of wall. So Control and D, move this forward, V, and then snap. And then I might take another piece like this, I think. So in fact that's this one, isn't it? So Control and D. So you got a wide variety of different decorative pieces. As you can see, you've got these that are really overly decorative. You've got this one that's really kind of bland. You've got this one that I'm using at the moment that looks like this, and then you've got the one with the window. Okay, so you've got a wide variety that you can use. For this one, I want to flip this one around, so I'm just going to rotate. So Control, rotate it around so that it's 90 degrees, or minus 180 in this case, and then I'm just going to snap these together. Okay, so make sure I'm on move, got this selected, hold V, and just snap. There we go. Notice it matches up nicely with the roof. That's very important. Now on this side I want to duplicate this, bring it forward, and notice that we get this weird mirror, not a mirroring effect, but a repetition, if you like. It's very repetitive, so I just want to flip that around to get rid of that repetitiveness. There we go, and now we get that mirroring effect that looks interesting. So I'm going to go to move, Alt V, snap, and then I might put in one of these more kind of basic bland pieces. Control and D, bring this forward, let's bring this over, and then snap. Okay, so that's just V and snap. There we go, that ties up nicely. So now it's just a case of putting our wall back into place again. So it's just lining it up nicely. Just making sure that there's no bits of wall that is sticking through these wooden planks, if you like. And now it's the floor pieces. Okay, so this one is the small little mini piece. What we want are these larger pieces. So I'm going to do a Control and D, and in fact actually we've got two of these, so let me undo that. Control and Z. Select this one and hold Shift and select this one as well. So we've got two pieces selected, and I'm going to do a Control and D and then just move these two forward, and as long as I've got those selected, both of them, I can then just snap those together. So if I hold V, snap, once again Control and D, move these forward and hold V and snap. Alright, and there we go. That puts it all together. So yep, we've got house now. It's much longer house, and it's also got a window on the back as well. Let's imagine, for example, that we wanted this to have a window on this side as well. So I could take this one piece and I could just press delete to get rid of it. Then I could take this piece, Control and D, and I can just move this across, rotate it around, Control as I'm rotating. There we go. So that should be -90 now, and I'm just going to snap this into place. So just want to hold V as long as you got move selected, and then I can just snap that directly into place, and now we've got a window on this side as well. That makes it kind of interesting. Okay, and just to make it slightly different to the other building, I'm also going to get rid of this piece on the top. In fact, let me actually put that on the other side. I think that might be more interesting. So I'm just going to bring it over this side and just rotate that around. So holding Control, and then just move that forward until it's resting in place. And there we go. Okay, so now we've got something that looks a little bit more different to the original piece that we were working with. You could even, if you wanted, extend this piece out if you like. This is using the narrower section. We should see that we've got a roof narrow and we've got a roof wide. This one's the narrow piece, but I think I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to call this house larger. Let's call it that perhaps. Now in our project we can now click and drag this and put that in there. Okay, so now I've got a bit of a task for you. What I'd like you to do is to have a go at creating your own. Okay, just using one of these prefabs, whichever one you want to start with, and just making it a slightly different variation on that house. So what we should end up with, instead of just 4 houses, we've now got 5 house types that are all entirely external only, so you can't enter into those. And then what we can do in the next video is start working on the ones that we can actually go into and explore.